Noshirwan, do you accept me as God in human form? I said, yes, Baba, absolutely. And then Arich, he moves his fingers. As you all know, Meher Baba kept silence for 44 years. So he moved his fingers very swiftly, and Arich then says, Meher Baba wants you to tell the world that he is God in human form. So this was the mandate he gave me, a mandate that I took very seriously and have kept it alive and aflame to this very day as I continue to share his message of love, truth, and spiritual unity as many ways as I possibly can.
He took Baba's order very seriously when Baba said, spread my message of love to the world. And that's what he's trying to do, either with his glow or his books or the archives. But he's totally devoted to doing that.
Narshawan Ansar. Oh my, you're asking about Narshawan. Oh my goodness. Well, you know, Narshawan, you can tell him I said this. Narshawan hasn't done anything. He's not done anything. And he knows it. He knows it. You know, people can say, oh, look at this, 50 years of the glow and beloved archives, and oh, look at all he's done, right? Narshawan knows he hasn't done a thing. And that's why his work is so great. That's why he will be remembered as, you know, not that I don't know if he cares about how he's remembered, but he will be remembered as sort of a giant in Baba's work. Why? Because I think at heart, Narshawan knows he does nothing. Why is he so tenacious, you know, and to the point where I've teased him before. I've even been annoyed with him because, you know, well, what's that you have? Is that something of Noreena's that you're holding? Well, maybe that would be nice to have in the museum. And I'm clutching it all the more because you don't want to leave the room if, you know, put it on a table. I'm teasing. But no, it's close to that. He was very tenacious about gathering things, but not because of himself and not because he thought, you know, I can do this or I'm doing that or I'm the big deal. Narshawan did it because Baba asked him to. If Baba asks you to do something, you can do it and think you're doing it, and then you don't really do much. Nothing gets much accomplished, I'll say that. But you can also do it and do it for him. And remind yourself all the time, he is doing it, I do nothing. And then it goes well.
The Glow magazine is a magazine that I will say, not just my father, but the Nalavala family started, I think, I want to say 1966. And my father, who grew up basically with Baba from the very beginning. I think he was 2 months old when he was first around Meher Baba. And my grandparents who lived across when Baba was in Dehradun. Baba was a regular visitor to their home. They were regular visitors to Baba's home across the street on Lytton Road. And my grandmother very much encouraged him. And so, and Baba, I think, loved the idea. And I think the Glow was born. And now, you know, we're getting close to 60 years.
Well, what was it to work with my mother, Franny, was that she was a very, very strong supporter of my work in the Glow. She was the first person who stepped forward and said, I will give you money to launch the magazine and pay for its printing, along with another family that came forward. So while she left the contents of the glow to my discretion. She would always, she handled my subscriptions as well. And she would write letters to remind people to send their subscriptions or renew their subscriptions. But as the years went by, and we reached a point where it seemed that if I joined a corporation in India for a job, they would not permit me to continue publishing The Glow. And that's exactly what happened. So the last time I met Meher Baba, which was 40 days before he dropped his body, he had invited me one afternoon at 3 o'clock in Mercer, and I sat in his presence. And this meeting was to discuss the future of The Glow and the future and my future. So at that time, the issue came up was that that I would continue to edit The Glow, to put the contents together, but it couldn't be in my name. It had to be in the name of my mother or anybody else. And one Baba lover who owned a printing press stepped forward and said that he would print The Glow. So Baba had arranged all that. He was a very practical avatar.
The Glow magazine is the seminal publication of Meher Baba, currently in existence on the earth. It is the publication of record, really, the periodical of record about Meher Baba. So members of Sufism Reoriented, even if they don't read it cover to cover every issue, they're guaranteed that when they open The Glow and read an article, they're going to have a well-researched, thoughtfully edited, well-designed reading experience and learn something about the work of Meher Baba, about the work of his mandali, about his lovers around the world. And what a treasure that is even available.
One day while I was at Mercer, Erich took me aside and he said that before you start every issue, sit back for a moment and think that I am doing this journal for the highest of the high, for God in human form. And every content of this magazine should be perfect. The photographs, the articles, the features, everything should be to perfection.
And as I got to know Nosh, he told me about his mandate from Meher Baba also in 1965 to start a periodical that would spread his message of love and truth, and also it was a general directive. I think Nosh interpreted it that way, and that worked out very well. And the amazing thing to me about it is that Nosh took that directive from Meher Baba and turned it into his life's work, and was committed enough to that project and to Meher Baba's directive to keep up with The Glow as a quarterly publication ever since. And so it's really an impressive feat for any human being.
For the whole history of The Glow, Nosh did very, very complex and very competent editing work. It was editing not only for sources that might have been from India, but also in terms of both accessible but academically approachable concepts. So you found articles in The Glow that ranged from very, very intellectual perspectives on Baba's work as well as book reviews, music reviews, fun stories, people's own experiences. So it had very, very broad subject matter and a broader and broader clientele.
So Sheila and I started Shuriar Press together in 1971, and one of the first publishing relationships we had was with Nashawan, and he had written the book The Beloved, which is a wonderful biography with wonderful photos, and is still, for me, when people ask what is a good first book to learn about Meher Baba, The Beloved is still a book I refer people to, and we published that in the early 70s, and so we started when we were all children in some way.
Richard and I got married in 1975 in June, and in that early fall we went to a bookstore in Harvard Square and saw a copy of The Beloved on the shelf, and Richard was inspired to pick it up for a friend of his.
And so we bought a copy of the book The Beloved for our friend Michael, and it turns out that we were so tempted by the book, without wrapping it up as a present, we opened it up ourselves and read it first, and were immediately transported by this book about Meher Baba.
Richard was very struck by the photographs, the beauty of the photographs in that book. And we sat down to read the book, and we were sitting together in the living room and opened the book, just started reading from the beginning, and this amazing energy of love came out through the pages and just washed over the both of us at the same time, and we felt very, very deeply moved. Something had happened.
Since that first beginning, Shuriar Press has acted as a printer for a lot of Nashawan's publications, books that he's written and researched and designed. The Glow magazine we have been printing for decades.
And all the time I've worked with him, we only ever had to reprint the Glow for him once. And he held back, I think, in saying anything, but the brown color that we were using at that time, it just got dark on press, and he wasn't 100% happy with it. And we were more than happy to redo it, because he has never asked us to do anything like that. In all the years, that's the only time I've ever really had to redo something for him. Yes, he is meticulous, like I said, but he's also very flexible. And as a client, he's probably one of the easiest clients to work with. And I don't know if that's because there's also a personal connection. Maybe I don't like being the bearer of bad news to him if we can't make a deadline, but he's always been very open to working with us. You know, he's like, just do the best you can, Trish. And I was like, okay, Nosh, we got you. But overall, he's a sweetheart. He's not a demanding client at all, but he knows what he wants when it comes to the print. And as I say, I think it says a lot that we've worked together for so long.
So he has become one of our favorite Shuriar Press customers. We don't have a lot of Meher Baba related customers at Shuriar Press, so he's our favorite.
What I remember is when The Beloved came in, and as I remember, we were in our very first building, which was very small. It was 600 square feet, and a good portion of that was a camera. And so it was very small, and Jim Meyer was working with us at the time. And what I remember was that there was maybe not a shoebox, but there was a box of marginal notes, and a box of main text, and a box of pictures, all to be coordinated. And I'm a very slow reader, so, three of us would get together after work in a little building.
And Jim Meyer was a very fast reader. And I remember this being this, you know, he already have an idea, but oh, we can do this. And I said, wait a minute, I haven't finished yet, you know. And it was, we go through all of us talking, you know, page by page by page, trying to integrate that all of that.
One of the things I remember about The Beloved is that he attempted to tell Meher Baba's life and message in almost a storybook way, and lots of photographs and some biography and his message, and made it very available and very readable. I remember once being with Margaret Trask in the early days, and she used to give that book to people because she thought it was so wonderful. And she said, Narshawan has done a great thing with this book, having it the way he has, making it so colorful and so accessible. So I think that book and others that he's done have had a real impact on people.
So when we first got it back from the bindery and all the boxes were delivered up in the front, it was in our second building where this happened. And everybody that I knew that had worked on the book went into the boxes and looked at the part that they had worked on. So I remember Jim Roble looking up and said, look, the page numbers line up. And somebody was, oh, look, the pictures look good. You know, it was wonderful. It was wonderful, but it showed me how everybody had their little stake in it, you know, and it was very exciting when it came.
One thing about The Beloved is that it really, as Sheila was just saying, in many ways was the first book that had real design to it. All the other books that we started with were text. And, you know, Sheila's been doing this work now for more than 50 years, and it's kind of a whole treasure of her work. But that's really where it started, right? It's like it was a mix of photos and text and marginal notes, and we had never done that before. Sheila had never done that before. So we owe it all to Narshawan.
But a very significant publication that we had was called The Glass Pearl. Now, in the 60s, there was a tremendous proliferation of psychedelic drugs, LSD, DMT, STP, some of these drugs that were very deleterious and were harmful. And Meher Baba gave out a message that these drugs are harmful physically, mentally, and spiritually. So in order to share this message with young people in different parts of the world, I published a book called The Glass Pearl. Now, why did I name the book The Glass Pearl? Because there was a poem by Hafiz in which he says that we often mistake the glass pearl, the glass pearl as reality. A glass marble as a pearl. We often mistake that, so I called it The Glass Pearl. And it was the untold LSD story. So it contained correspondence between Meher Baba and the leader of the psychedelic movement, Richard Alpert, who's popularly known as Ramdas. We featured that, an interview with another leader of the movement. His name was Alan Cohen, who had given up drugs and had taken to sharing Meher Baba's message with young people on college campuses.
Since we in the United States were also very, very motivated and serious about Baba's statements about drugs and his urging us to spread that message, we started to work together with Narshawan. It culminated in a little booklet that was published in the United States called The Glass Pearl. And Narshawan made it available to those in India. And we also used it in the United States. One of the things that was very interesting and was the subject of many articles that I wrote for the Glow was how relevant Baba's science was in anticipating what was to be known about the effects of these drugs. Meher Baba was a half century ahead of science in his statements about drugs and their harmfulness and the importance to disassociate the use of drugs for phony spiritual progress.
Initially, when we moved to this country, Nosh had brought some of the material because initially when we moved, we didn't think we would be staying here permanently. But then we realized that it was best for our son, who had a medical condition, to be here permanently. So Nosh worked towards that, about our staying on in this country. And we had brought some of the material with us because we were on an extended stay, and Nosh had been editing Glow for a number of years and wanted to continue even while we were here. So we did bring some material, but then when we realized that we were going to continue to stay on, we brought the rest of the material. And initially it was housed in our house. Prior to this house, we were living elsewhere. So we housed it there, then we housed it here. Then we felt the need, because then some others also gave him material, and it just became too much to contain it in this house. So the idea of having a separate building was born. And then Nosh reached out to a number of people, and one of them was Pete Townshend, and he gave a good enough amount which helped us to buy this building in Beloved Archives and locate Beloved Archives there.
So I think it was the early 80s that Nosh moved to New Jersey, and my wife, Jean, helped Nosh with finding a place to live, with furniture, with a car, all kinds of stuff. So we helped him settle into New Jersey, and eventually he had a few apartments, and I remember visiting his apartments, and I think the first apartment he had all his stuff upstairs, and then the second apartment he had a big basement, so there were books and an office and everything, where he had started the Glow and the Beloved Archives there.
And it was all kept at his home, in his garage and in his house. I mean, his treasures were everywhere. And they were running out of space, and it became imperative that they find a home for all these treasures.
Eventually, we went with him many times searching for a building. And finally, he found the one that he chose and moved in there. And after construction and all that stuff, he asked me to help with setting up an audio-video room.
We went down to New Jersey because Nosh had hosted ward parks for doing some of his seminars, and then went over to see Beloved Archives and wander through the archives and see the many things that Nosh has there. To see that original copy of the Master's Prayer with the edits on it, and which is just incredible to see that, and Baba's sandals and Baba John's hair that's there.
And then you look at the things that Baba has accomplished through him. You know, you can see why. To me, why? Why? Because look at the record of life with Meher Baba, of unknown diaries coming out, being published, of hidden treasures being uncovered. You say, well, Baba wanted that because it brings people closer to him. I said, well, it's just dishes Baba ate off of. What does that mean? Well, in and of itself, it means nothing. But if Baba uses it to give someone a portion of his love, let's say 2 centuries from now, whatever it is, whenever it is, it's all now for Baba. So Baba knows now the effect, the impact that those dishes will have in what we call the future. And you can say, well, why would the dishes do it? We don't know, except that that is what might touch someone. There's a temple in or mosque somewhere. I'm like Eric, don't ask me the details. But there is a mosque somewhere in India, and Eric told me about it, and I can't remember all of it. But all I remember is that he said, you know, this mosque, Charles, is built on. Why is it so famous? Why do people come from all over, millions of pilgrims? He said, because there's one strand of his hair there, of Muhammad's hair, the Prophet. One strand. He said, see how it is. See how it is. Because those things are the way in which people can be touched. And in and of itself, it's a strand of hair. But the way it's imbued with by the Prophet with power, just like relics in the Middle Ages.
When I come here and work on Baba's work, it gives me a lot of joy. And as soon as I enter this building, it gives me so much of joy, So I spend my time and so my effort. So that gives me, that is a precious thing I'm doing in this world. So that's kind of a feeling I get it. And also, particularly when actually working with the Nash, he actually shares his experience with Baba. So that gives me, so a lot of like conviction. So how we are actually leading this spiritual journey. So it's a very happy moment. So when we are doing that kind of work. So all the artifacts I really like it. So I really enjoy the feeling. So Baba touched it, Baba used it. So all the artifacts. So and also Baba's pictures.
Well, Mayor Baba is the avatar. So anything connected to him, directly connected to him, is precious and sacred, and will only grow in its sacredness in time. And I think that having an archive, having a place, a dedicated place to capture both materials, documents, articles of clothing, etc., it's a very important mission to do that, since Mayor Baba dropped his body not very long ago. This is the time when those things can be captured. A couple 100 years from now, it'd be much more difficult to do that. This is the time. Nashrawan knew that, and he seized that moment, so to speak.
People were transformed by seeing, a piece of the cross, or what they thought was a piece of, or a relic of a saint. You say, well, that's so ridiculous. Why could they? No, because we in our ignorance, we in our limited state, we in this gross form, sometimes something else in the gross world becomes a doorway to reality, to our true self, to God. And all these things then can serve that. So preserving them is not just so we can have a wonderful museum and people can see, well, Baba wore that, Baba wore that. It's because at some point, in some way, people might be touched and they might be transformed by that. And you say, well, that's so little, if you'd only met, Erich, then you would, no, because that is not their portion. This is their portion. This is how Baba is going to reach out to them. We have no idea what Baba can do through any of these things that we may call artifacts and so forth. So collecting them, yes, on one level it sounds like, well, you're preserving the legacy, you're telling the story. That's true. But I think on a deeper spiritual level, if I may say so, and again, who am I? But this is what I've gathered from his Mandali, let me put it that way, and Elizabeth, is that these things have meaning because Baba gives them meaning, and their power will come out when, in the right moment, in someone's life.
A lot of, if we call it literary artists, are not terribly social. And they see their connection with their audience through their art. Neshwan's different. He's always thinking of events, of exposing new material or historical material to broader audiences, and runs an excellent event, always serving good food. So he's got an extrovertive element to his sensitivity. And he's also got a remarkable sensitivity to how people might react to varieties of material, and how getting to that median, that center point of Meher Baba's followers is really an art, because it's like herding cats otherwise. And he's able to do that. We can't find much wrong with Neshwan as a role model.
Nashwan had a way of mentioning something, and such as a project of his, and would gradually come to the point of the reason he's talking about the project, and told me that he had been planning an expansion for Beloved Archives, and out of his mouth, I think the next words were, would you be interested in helping out with this project? And I told him I would, and we went through a process of figuring out how much of his land we would be allowed by the town of Hamilton to use so that we could maximize the amount of interior space he would be able to get by adding to the existing building as much as he would be allowed to add to that existing building. And so we were able to add a room that would accommodate about 50 people, 50 guests, and a small kitchenette to help provide refreshments.
Yeah, my involvement generally has been with the audiovisual stuff, and I'm grateful for that opportunity that I got from Noshirwan and Baba, obviously. And I generally assist in trying to record the video of the people who come, and obviously you do the editing and everything so it can be put up on YouTube, and then later also put it on the website that Noshirwan has. And that's one of the main things we did. And as part of that, we had to set up this room when the renovation was done, and then it was extended. And we, along with John Gunn of Chapel Hill, we tried to put all this stuff here so we can actually, during the events that happen here, we can record the talks that people give, the songs that people sing, and so on and so forth. And John was, I keep taking his name because his help was enormous in this particular thing. And we had to run the cables at places that we couldn't imagine, and and that kind of thing. And then he helped us get this equipment and put it all together. So it works. It works the way it's supposed to, and we learned, and then we, like I said, took up the torch and then tried to do the best we can.
So at some point, Naushawan expressed an interest in having me set up, along with his friend Prakash Dheram from New Jersey, to pick the equipment for the sound system for his new room and install it. And that turned into a wild adventure because first, the design turned out to be very complicated, like video cameras attached to the ceiling and to the back wall, and then they could be steered by remote control and so forth. So a lot of wiring was involved.
We also did some improvements on the capacity of the floor load of the building, the weight, that it would be able to support enough weight to condense some of the archive documents as well. So also, I should mention that that Price Branch's construction company really saved the day on the whole project by coming up from Myrtle Beach to actually execute the construction.
Where, for example, at Beloved Archives, you have a very sophisticated environmental preservation, along with the kind of organizational record that can make particular material accessible to people who might want to do research there. So Beloved Archives has a unique feeling of a kind of a library, a living library, but paying attention to the preservation of materials.
It is indeed a very heartwarming, joyful feeling that I have whenever I come to the Beloved Archives, because it's like, for instance, for anybody who's going to the church on Sunday mornings, how they feel about it. It's like, of course we remember God every day, every moment, whenever you can. But coming here to the Beloved Archives has a very special meaning, in the sense that, like I said, mentioned earlier, it's our little sanctuary. Whenever I come here, I feel an internal feeling of peace in my heart. And it is indeed very nice that we can all come and gather here. Our most recent program that we had here was for Beloved Baba's birthday, which was very special in the sense that we performed some skits where we all enacted like Beloved Baba and Mehra and Mani, and we also performed dances. So that was a very nice program that we all had and enjoyed. And I will miss this so much when I move to India. But our children live here, so I know I'll be coming here every year to visit them. And of course, I'll be coming to the archives to meet everybody here as well, and to Beloved Archives, which is very special for us New Jersey people.
The thing about Naushawan is his family was deeply connected to Meher Baba's, and Meher Baba stayed there during the new life and had a long time connection. And the whole point of his magazines and his books and all the things that he's done all these years is that it's a reflection of his of the love that Meher Baba has given him and awakened in him. So all of that is about that. And he has kept this spark going to give people a way of remembering Meher Baba. for, oh God, over 50 years now, long, long time. And the whole point is to keep the heart awakened and alive and focused on him. All the rest of it doesn't really matter. He's remarkable in that he has had access to many of Meher Baba's things, archival things now, and he's done an amazing job. I think it's probably the only Meher Baba type museum in the West.
I have a few things Baba touched through my mother and Elizabeth and maybe Norino and Nadine, a few, not much. But if I share something with somebody that Baba touched, you know, they feel it. Sometimes very powerfully they feel it. Because it's just a piece of something, maybe it's a button or, you know, with an image. But Baba imbues it with something powerful, right? Does Baba have to do that? No. But why does he do that? Because we live in this world, and he contacts us in ways that are in our way of living and thinking and feeling, and so yes, some of these things will touch people's hearts, you know. So wonderful that he's collected them all, because Baba has a purpose for each and every one of them. And then documenting Baba's advent. Now, I have just recently seen, for the first time, he took me and showed me the room where he has all these files. I mean, file cabinets. And he said, these are all the documents I have. And I thought, oh my God, how can you even think about it? And of course, it's overwhelming. But what a wonderful thing. Because everything about Baba is deeply significant. Now, we don't want to make those files or those objects Baba, or in some way, you know, rise them, make them something that they're not. We always have to, I think, keep in mind that it's by his grace that they mean something. But if we're careful to keep that in mind, then yeah, everything about him is precious. Every detail is precious. Because Baba's story in this Advent is our story. It's the lovers and the beloved. So every lover of God is part of the story.
These artifacts from Meher Baba's life, things that he wore, things of his body, his hair, things that he touched, they're just things. But they only really matter because of that overarching thing that happened to Nashawan and happens to people who fall for Meher Baba. They recognize the highest within, his love. And so these things then matter because they're touchstones to his physical presence, which the purpose of his physical presence was to give this love.
I believe that my mother, Freni Nalavala, was the first archivist of Meher Baba's artifacts. So anything that Meher Baba touched when he came to our home, she would just put it away, and then many years later it was given to me when we established Beloved Archives.
My grandmother was a real firebrand. She was a character. She was sharp. She was very active, very energetic, very loving, but much more of a stern figure than my grandfather.
Now, there's a story that when Vivekananda was following his master Ramakrishna, he would pick up the dirt from under his feet and apply it to his forehead. My mother did exactly the same thing. In 1958, when she and my father went for a darshan program to Mehrabad, which was in Lower Mehrabad, Baba suddenly got up and bare feet started walking from Lower Mehrabad to Upper Mehrabad, where the tomb is. And my mother followed him, and at every step she would pick up the dirt from under his feet and then preserve it. And this has been preserved in these vials and in these bottles.
My memories of her as an older woman are interesting because I was an adult and I would spend time with her in Bangalore, where she had moved to after my grandfather passed. And she, as you mentioned about her collecting the dirt under Baba's feet or the hair, things of that nature, she was very attached to those pieces of it as kind of, I think, very much part of that Indian tradition of having something physical. She would also sit with a stack of photographs of Baba, and probably every 4 or 5 hours she would go through them and say Baba's name. And she and I would do that when I would come visit her. It was important to her, the recollection piece, the memory piece, the remembering what was important, but somehow the physicality of it meant something to her. And she sort of passed that on to me. I think it was it was more tangible.
Nosh was given a mandate by Meher Baba. He took that mandate to spread the word of Meher Baba and put that into something he knew well, which was the publication of a magazine. And then he put his entire being into that publication. And year in, year out, decade in, decade out, he put everything he had into each edition, each quarterly edition of The Glow. This is a kind of devotion which is really worth honoring because it is living love. He is putting it into action consistently over a very long period of time. And all I can say is I honor that devotion. I bow down to that kind of devotion.
It's been a long time since I've been to the House of Beloved, but when I walk in there, you feel Baba's presence. I mean, it's very obvious, particularly the amount of love that has been put into building the archive. Nosh's love, Maruk's love, and everyone who helped. And we were all part of that and helping in any way we could. So when you walk in there, it's just, you feel at home. You feel like you've come home. Yeah. In Nosh's meticulousness, I was receiving an example of how Baba would want things done. The way Nosh did what he did there, and just his presentations, to me, it's an example of how to live for Baba.
When people keep repeating that you'll never fall in love, when everybody keeps retreating, but you can't seem to get enough, let my love open the door, let my love open the door, let my love open the door to your heart. to your heart.
The world will have to recognize Meher Baba as God in human form come in their midst to pull them out from the mire of ignorance and illusion and give them the light of reality.
And that we have to close now. We're running out of time, but it's been a pleasure to sit here and chat with you.
Thank you very much.
And I hope we have the pleasure of seeing you again in Los Angeles in the near future.
Jai Baba.